Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. I'm Alex. And if this is the first time here, let me give you a little bit of an orientation of what you're looking at here. If this is the first time, you're probably in participants. Participants are where you end up when you come here. If you want to be in the panel, you just need to show up a little earlier. So and raise your Zoom hand. You'll see a raised hand. So that's how you get into the panelist group. You need to be here by 6:40. We start doing mic checks between 6:40 and 6:45, and we need you to be in the group before we do that. So be here by 6:40. We actually open the doors at 6 o'clock. So 6 o'clock is when we come in. It's a much more casual conversation. So once we get to 7 o'clock, we're really going through Q&A. But at 6 o'clock, you can come in. We're hanging out. We're just kind of talking. At 6:30, we distribute the Discord link. There's about 400 of us talking about all of this all day, 24/7 seemingly. And you can get into Discord by being here at 6:30. The link expires at 7. So by the time I start talking, it's no longer working. So you'll need to come another day. And then again, we do the mic checks and then we get started. If you want to ask a question, you use the question and answer down below. If you want to chat, you use the chat. Don't put comments in the questions. We'll just dismiss them. Don't put questions in the chat that you want us to actually address. If you ask questions in the chat, we assume that you want them to be in the chat. Don't move anything from the chat into the question and answer, ever. Also, if you're a panelist, don't interact with the question and answers because it makes both of those things make it harder for us to process what we're doing. So the question and answer is you need to be asking. If you're a panelist and you wish you had asked a question, you need to do that before you raise your digital hand while you're still an attendee before the top of the hour. So otherwise, we're going to mostly focus on the Q&A. If we have time at the end, we'll open it up to panelists as far as question and answer goes. Now, this is the first hour of 2 hours. We have this first hour is just Q&A, and that's what we do every day at 7 days a week. Saturday and Sunday, we do 2 hours of Q&A from 7 to 9 instead of 7 to 8 Pacific Standard Time. At 8 o'clock this morning, we have, Leland Best is going to be talking about vMix. Yeah, so Leland is going to give us an intro and how vMix works and how he uses it. So that's going to be pretty cool at 8 o'clock. And then on Saturday, we have a long day. So we have 2 hours of Q&A. And then at 9, we have at 9 a.m., Nick Justishin is going to be talking about Unreal Engine. We're really excited about how we integrate that with all kinds of media development. And then at 10 o'clock, Steve Bays, the former product manager from Final Cut, comes in and shows us deep cuts in Final Cut and really shows us a lot of in that process. And then at 11 o'clock, I'm talking about building motion graphics for live. And at noon, Aaron Mailer comes in and talks about networking, answers your questions about networking. So that's what's coming up on Saturday. We actually have next week already laid out. So we're going to have Monday's Ruthless Review. That means that all of us look at each other's setups and review them. So that's the second hour on Monday. Is that we'll do that. And then on Tuesday we have Victor, Francis Shepard, and Jeff Francis talking about remote music production. So they've been working together on figuring out how do you build something together online, where you can actually collaborate. And so they're going to show us what they've learned so far and how they're putting it together. Wednesday, Chris Summers is going to talk about camera LUTs. I know a lot of you, trying to figure out what do all those LUTs mean? How do they work? Chris Summers is going to talk about that. So that's the second hour on Wednesday. Thursday, Thomas Kelly, who I've worked with a bit over the last decade, is going to talk about what it's like to do media at the White House. So he was in the Obama White House as part of the media crew. And so he's going to talk about what happens, what do they do, how does it work, what are the issues. I mean, it's going to be a very rare view of insight into what it takes to kind of run media every day out of the White House. So he's going to talk about that on Thursday. And then Steve Brazil is going to talk about shooting concerts on Friday. So he's a photographer that works, really, really highly regarded photographer that shoots a lot of concert footage or a lot of concert stills. And so he's going to talk about what it takes and how he got into it and what he does. And so that's all next week. Anyway, so that's our little announcements. And Chris, what do we got cooked up?
Right off the bat, any recommendations for an Alex kind of reliability CDN?
Well, I mean, an Alex kind of reliability CDN is Akamai. Like that's a. I mean, if you're asking for like what I consider the most reliable CDN, I'm always going to lean towards Akamai, or the other one that we're getting into more and more is the Elemental Cloud. So those are the two big ones that So Elemental's solution within AWS and Akamai are to me the two gold, the gold standards. The one I have the most. So AWS is the thing that we're playing with. We're testing these links that so far are working flawlessly. These little links here, and then but the one I have the most experience when I'm working on shows that have more than 1 million viewers concurrent. Most of those shows are all on Akamai. So that's that's how we've done it. I mean, in the past. So and there's lots of CDNs. So you just have to decide. I think that a good white label CDN. I think number one is that I'm getting more and more into rolling my own solutions inside of AWS. So we were talking about that earlier, that rather than using Restream and paying a monthly subscription for just to pass things to other things, I'm like, I can build that inside of AWS. so I'm kind of, and it only costs me per $1. I don't know what I thought it cost to stream out of AWS to YouTube or to Facebook or whatever. But when I found out that it was $1 an hour or less, I mean, and I'm being very conservative, it's more like 60 cents an hour, 70 cents an hour to send stuff to each output. Restream got a lot less interesting to me. So as a geek though, so that's my call-in version of how to stream it. Not the I want to just turn it on and make it go. So so I'm like I want to be able to build all of this stuff out, and there's a bunch of multi-language stuff that I want to do. So I'm playing a lot more in AWS. If I was I think that Livestream puts out Vimeo/Livestream is a great white label. If you're just trying to get something that you're paying a certain amount of money and it just works, and you can control access and so on and so forth. Does anyone else have any other CDNs that are I'm assuming what we're looking for is white label. I'm not talking about public CDNs like Facebook and YouTube, but like one that it feels like you're a player. Go ahead, Colin.
Back in 06, I was building out a system for a client who I subsequently had to fire. But the network came out very well. I was using an outfit called CD Networks. I was just checking now, and they're still around. They were pretty good back then, so I assume they're better now. Maybe that's not a reasonable assumption, but worth a look.
Yeah, but so I mean, for me, generally, it's I usually go from Akamai to Livestream. Like Livestream is the other white label that we'll use if a client wants to do that. We're working on doing more players. We have a company that we work with in Australia called Streamshark, and they are kind of the CIA of big streams. So that they work with really big social companies and building out lots of really custom pieces. So if you need someone to actually provision something for you and really make it scalable, and it's not quite Akamai, but more than what you need in Livestream, then we tend to use Streamshark to partner and use their player and so on and so forth to do that. So those are the three for white label, and then you have lots of social. You have to decide whether you want to use social media stuff or not. Next question.
This is kind of interesting. You may not want to deal with it. How about that camera footage from the CNN crew after they were arrested this morning? They left the camera on after they were arrested. Thoughts, comments?
Their news.
Where can we find that?
Yeah, exactly.
I would imagine somewhere on Google. Just a guess.
I mean, Jeffrey, go ahead.
Who's right?
Yeah, I watched it as it was live. It was basically what happened was they arrested the reporter, and then the rest of the crew. The crew put down the camera. You saw part of the street and everybody's feet. They did it for any type of audio that could have come afterwards, so it wasn't there for video. And then they ended up confiscating the camera. So really not much to pose on with that. It just happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the anytime you write, it's press. Like there's and so in this country, press can get away with an awful lot. And I think that in general, most of us have, when we're being if we're being arrested, most of us have the right to turn that stuff on. You just have to decide, make sure that you're doing the right thing. A lot of times we think that something is happening, and you just got to make sure that, that helps you. You know, when if you personally leave your camera on, just make sure that you're buttoned up, because you've now created evidence. You know, it's evidence. Sure, it's evidence with the police, but it's also evidence against you. You know, prosecutors love when they have more footage. You know, and so you know, so you just have to be careful of doing that, to make sure that you're not being argumentative, you're not doing a bunch of stuff, because you actually undermine your case when you do that. So I'm as a lawyer's son. So so you know, shooting footage, I do think that there's an incredible power to it, and I think what we haven't seen yet, I think we're going to see in the next couple of years, is what I would call a feedback loop. You know, in one of these things where you're shooting live, people are seeing it, and then people are responding to that in real time, and I think that that could create a chain reaction that people aren't quite ready for. So if there's a police possibly overstepping their bounds in a certain area of town, and then they're live streaming and those people are watching, and then they react to that, you could end up with something pretty explosive. So you have to know what we're, you know, we have incredible tools at our, you know, on our phone now, and that are both really powerful, but also can be potentially pretty dangerous. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember is in the Miranda rights, it says anything you say can and will be used against you. It doesn't say for you. It's against you. So you have to you have to keep that in mind too.
Yep. And yeah, I'm not going to get into law. So anyway, so we should bring my dad on sometime.
That's a whole new show.
Yeah, that's a whole new show. All right, keep on going.
Let's see here. I've been asked to stream a corporate event. In layman's terms, I like that. What is the difference between Wowza streaming engine and their streaming cloud, and what are the considerations to choose between them?
Yeah, go ahead, Leland, and then Tucker.
Pretty straightforward. I'm just looking at Wowza's site because I don't use it personally, but it sounds
okay.
like
Well, no. If you, I just wanted people who used it.
No, that's fine.
Don't. Yeah, go ahead. Tucker, did you have a comment around that?
Yeah, we use Wowza a decent bit, and I looked into using the media engine, and the media engine is the backbone that they're actually running in AWS or something like that. That it is the actual CDN application. The Wowza cloud is basically that, but they're hosting it and managing it for you. So it's kind of the easy button version. Whereas if you wanted to do a CDN inside of your facility that was not public, you would lean toward the media engine. Also, if you wanted to just separate from the cloud and maybe do more, you would spin up your own streaming media engine. But yeah,
we've used a lot of the media engines to do local, like one of the things that Aaron does is the stream for the Open at the Open in the UK, wherever that ends up. And we've got like 6 Wowza servers that are basically serving up 30,000 people, so they can open their phone, but only in the location, so they can only see it there. Yeah, absolutely. And then the cloud, of course, is, basically gives you a CDN. Next question.
This is a question for Victor and any other Logic users. What's your typical vocal chain from the mic all the way to the track? The hardware, software, typical plugins, and also what audio resolution do you use?
Good question. Victor?
I'll speak from my point of view. 44.1 or 48, depending on the project. I use an Apollo Twin, and usually go directly from that into the interface. Sometimes I will use one of their Unison preamp plugins to give a little more warmth. But other than that, if I'm going to in the recording phase, I just make sure my gain staging is well and good. And I don't.
And when you say gain stage, where do you want to see it peaking when you're recording a vocal?
For me, well, I'm not a vocalist, I'm a saxophonist, so I like to see it, way down, minus 12, even a little bit lower. I need the headroom there. I'm recording at 24-bit, and so I'd rather have the headroom because the saxophone can have some very, high highs and low lows. So that's what I do. But as far as any processing, I wait until the track is done before I start applying any kind of post-processing. I just don't want to mess with that stuff, other than maybe I'll put a reverb on myself on the Apollo, just so while I'm recording, I get that warm, fuzzy feeling. But hey, we have a couple other professional recording engineers.
So Jeff, how do you approach it?
Definitely, it's starting at the mic. So try out a few different mics to match to the singer. A good preamp, and again, like Victor said, keep your levels low because the voice is really dynamic. So I'm shooting for, maybe -16,
And that
-20 as
that kind of goes
average
back
levels.
to and that kind of goes back to having a great preamp because you want it to be really quiet because you're going to give it a lot of headroom, but you're moving closer to your noise floor, right?
Right. And yeah, definitely work at 24 bits. 32 is great, like in the new sound devices, when you don't know what the source is going to be. That's not the typical use case in the studio. You've kind of been able to test with a vocalist. So 24 is just fine in that regard. And usually clean mic, preamp, A to D converter, and then processing after that. Sometimes a light compression on the way in, but try not to overdo that.
Brian, anything to add there? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a conversation on my silly little show with some other audio guys. I think it was just last night. But there seems to be a little bit of a tendency with folks now coming up to put plugins on the way into the DAW as they're recording, which is exactly the opposite of what I learned how to do when I learned in a recording studio 117 years ago, which was just get it as clean as you can possibly get it recorded with nothing on it. You can always add stuff on it later. So, mic choice, you can't change that later. So get what you want, nice clean mic pre, with very good noise specs so that you don't have to hit it so hard. And make sure you don't overdrive it. So yeah, peaking at -20 or -8, we've got plenty of dynamic range in the digital world now to be able to deal with it. You can always pile on effects later, but you can't pull them off if you print them when you record.
Do you think there's ever a time when we're going to get to a point where the preamp is really in the mic and we're just we have USB ones like that now, but where it's just like a Dante Ethernet cable coming out the back of it? Go ahead, Victor.
Well, as far as preamp, speaking of the mic, we already have some companies making some great mic emulations that are, caked in to the hardware and connected through, virtual software. So that's already happening. Microphones that'll let this sound or model a Neumann. Those things are already happening as far as it being built into the actual hardware without having to plug in. Maybe someone else knows. I'm not talking about
plugging it in. I'm just talking about just saying, I'm going to give you that clean sound. Like every time you add an analog cable or add anything else to it, you're adding potential, noise. And it just feels like, because in my opinion, you get the best preamp that you can get, have it embedded into the mic, and then the mic just has an RJ45 on the back that comes out that just connects to Dante. Just feels like there's some market for that, but maybe not. Maybe it makes it less modular. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, certainly Dante's been great, and we're moving preamps much closer to the microphones by keeping the preamp and the A to D converter, right by the microphone. But it removes the choice of matching a microphone to a preamp. I think our next big leap is when we get a truly digital microphone that doesn't turn to analog electricity and then convert to digital. We have something that actually scans the diaphragm, maybe optically, and actually converts that right to bits. But that's not here yet.
That's really cool. I didn't even think of that.
Reflect a laser off the diaphragm and modulate.
Why are we even doing this anymore? Anyway, so that's amazing.
Discord.
Yeah. Bill,
Where's Elon Musk when we need him?
Yeah. So I do a good little bit of voiceover, and I'm going to amplify that I have nothing in my chain at all. This is an Neumann TLM 103 that is running into a little phantom power supply just to make sure the mic has absolutely rock solid. These are Rolls boxes. They're not very expensive. And then into a little PM55P personal monitor amp, which only gives my headphone return. Then the rest of the signal goes out on a long XLR cable to the inside where I'm monitoring, and I usually record there through a Zoom TAC2, which is kind of like some of those other FireWire mic dial-up services, and then that goes directly into Final Cut Pro 10. So there is nothing shaping the signal between this diaphragm and the recording.
Well, arguably everything it touches is shaping the signal, right?
Yeah, you have a good point there. But I'm choosing for the least affect on the signal. I want the signal to reach there as clean as possible so that the post determines what the EQ profile is.
Right, Tucker, and then Sky.
On the preamps microphones with preamps built in, about 6-8 years ago, quite a few manufacturers, I think Neumann's one of them, did come out with microphones that have AES3 direct out, and so it does go immediately digital AES3, and that's sent, which does exactly that. It keeps, like,
that's great.
You've got element, preamp, it is now A to D conversion, and that's it. It's done.
Yeah, that's great. And Sky, last thing.
The context again, why a live performance versus Brian doing it so you have lots of post production. You would want it as clean as you can get it, just like in your video signal. But in even video, they're doing all of these effects now because possibly you need it in the moment. So I guess, Alex, where is a live performance modification?
Oh yeah, well yeah, live we do all the stuff. I mean, what you see is what you get. So with live, you have to, like, we run our levels. Like Brian will tell you, it was scary when he first started working for us because Brian was living in a -12 world, and I was like, hey, I need this peaking at -3. Like I need this like I need you to give me a limiter at -3, let it pound up against it, and then just hit it hard, because the number one complaint you get on a live stream is that it's too quiet. When it comes to audio, and then you also have to do any EQ, because that's what's going to be in the show, and so it's a much different approach. Now, what you want to do if you're recording those stems is try to get those all before all of that. You want to record everything raw, so that everything's, so that in post I can do whatever I want if I'm going to clean up the signal. But and what's interesting, by the way, is the post is really interesting for a lot of these virtual events because they're super clean. Like, like when you clean up something that you've done on a bunch of Skype records, what's cool about it is, I mean, it's Skype, but if they have a relatively good mic, it's not a bad signal, and you don't hear any of the other ones in the mic. So it gives you a lot more freedom than you had before to move things around and amplify things, because a lot of times when you bring up someone else's volume, you were also bringing up a far mic, over somewhere else. And so you don't have any of that. So it's an interesting thing. I'm going to move on, Sky. We're going to go.
That's okay. Zoom also records separate audios.
Yeah. You're right. So Zoom, you can record all the separate audios. You can choose to do that. I don't do it because there's so many of us. It would be
Zoom meetings.
Zoom
you can't
meetings.
Do that in a webinar.
Oh, you can't. Okay. I haven't tried
almost certain of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's one, Alex, I would love to take a chance at answering. When is it okay to use speakers for the audio output instead of a headset? It seems some programs like Zoom and FaceTime take care of not creating an audio loop, but others don't. Is there a quick way to know when it's okay? The answer is never.
I would say when it doesn't matter. Like if it doesn't matter, if you're not doing something, if you're not doing a big broadcast or whatever, there's definitely times I jump on and I'll have my I won't have earpiece in. But it is when you're doing an event and the event, I'm not going to get into it here right now, but the event that I did yesterday with with ILM, that event they had open, it sounded fine. And that was it, because like trying to have those guys put earphones, earpieces in was not going to happen. So, so you can definitely do it. The thing you have to remember is that that's an audio cancellation. It's not, it's an audio removal. So what it's doing is that it's taking the audio that you're sending in, it's listening for your speaker. And it records your speaker coming in, and then it looks at what's going back out, and it just removes that audio, the speaker audio, out of your signal. That means it's literally, it's like taking the digital scalpel and going, I'm going to rip this all out. Now it's taking some of you out too. That's not a clean process. They've done it as clean as they can. So you will always sound better with an earpiece in, and the other thing that happens is that all these audio cancellations. So what it does is it also pushes down everybody else's mics. So you actually, when everybody is wearing a headset, and we're going to get to a point, we're not here yet, but starting July 1, I'm not going to have anybody in this group that it doesn't have a headset in, because it will sound better across the whole event. We're kind of lightly moving towards a more broadcast experience. And so, but when it does that, all the audio cancellation here everything sounds better. People can actually more smoothly talk to each other. All that other stuff happens. The entire system works better when the speakers are closed in ear. So to Chris, it's close to Chris, but with one exception of like, hey, if you're talking to your parents and talking to your parents matter. I know I'm gonna get my trouble. It matters, but they're just happy they see a screen. Like they're happy they can find you on the internet. So I know my parents are. My parents, it's always like trying to figure out why they can and can't hear it. Matthew, you had a comment, and then Brian.
Yeah, I did. When is it okay to use monitors over earbuds? Never, ever.
Yeah.
But like you said, unless it's hey, I can't, they should always be trying for it.
And if someone calls me on FaceTime or something, I'll just pick it up and talk to them, and it sounds fine. And the technology is actually pretty amazing that does that. But it's not if it matters, if you're doing a show and someone's and you're getting paid to do it, or it's important people watching it, then you should have a headset in. Brian?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so then, my only exception was just if you absolutely positively have to have open speakers and microphones in a room for whatever reason, then you need to hire me or someone like
yes. Or someone Brian-ish. Yeah.
And I will tell you that you will spend a lot more money a lot faster than if you had just gotten an Audio Implements IFB and stuck it in all their ears. And
the other thing you can do in open, if we're talking about open speakers on a stage with 50 people in the room, the other thing to remember is that the first thing that you can do to get rid of a lot of that is give everybody on stage an SM58. It won't look as good, but if you don't have a Brian or you don't, or someone like that to do the audio engineering, you want a mic with a lot of off-axis rejection, so that you can then it'll be a lot easier for you to manage your speakers. When you have you might be able to get away with it with like a WL 185, sure, maybe, but otherwise you need to really know what you're doing. It's a really dangerous, you're really playing with fire when you start opening up mics and speakers in a big room. Okay, next question. We'll move on.
Victor has a good question. I think there might be a slight typo in it, Victor. How can we use a mic pre 6? I think you mean a mix pre 6 2 to give a Blackmagic Cinema 4K time code?
I haven't tried that.
You can't. It's not meant to do that. You would need to, it's not the right device. The MixPre 10 is the one that has time code. So the time code that's on a MixPre 6 looks like that, and it's just a HDMI TC in. So you just wouldn't do it like that.
Did you rehearse that move?
I was reading that the Mark II's, the 6 also has time code. Maybe I misread.
I'll ask someone about that. So anyway, how about how to do that?
You would go with like a tentacle sync where you would feed it in through the aux as a separate channel. Through that aux mic in, you could send time code, but audibly through there.
By the way, the tentacle sync is really cool. So if you haven't seen the tentacle sync, it's these little devices that will sync up to each other and give everybody time code, and it's just a much less expensive solution. Oh, I think Mickey disappeared, so I'm wondering whether he's going to get one. So we'll talk here. I'll stretch here for a second while Mickey goes and tries to find it. So this, by the way, if you haven't seen this, for all of you, this is the international symbol for stretch. If anyone ever says that, Sky is showing you cut. Okay, now we need to cut. And so anyway, so the so the tentacle sync is a really great. I didn't really know what it was for a while, and it's a great little thing that you can attach to a bunch of devices and wirelessly, get them all to connect. Mickey, were you grabbing one? Did you?
I actually don't use the tentacle syncs. I use this, which is called the UltraSync 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I like them better than the tentacle sync because by themselves you could set. Sorry, I ran, so I'm kind of out of breath. So you don't need a mobile device to set these up. So it has a screen, so you could just set everything up there. And if you have multiple of them, they will sync together wirelessly.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. So what's that called again? Can you tell us again?
The Timecode Systems UltraSync 1.
UltraSync 1. Maybe we can get a link in there and into the Discord. Yashai. and then Chris, and then we'll
Okay. First, regarding the Mix Pre Series 2, they all have time generator in and out. So if the camera can take you can take time code, that's fine. You can maybe jam the camera and you just pull the time code out. Now, regarding Tentacle Sync, I actually intimately know them. In Tentacle Sync, what you're doing there, you're printing a time code on the audio channel. And the nice thing about the Tentacle Sync is on one channel, you print an audio, and on the second channel, they have a little mic on this unit that actually can get you a scratch audio. However, in order to sync it, you have to be able to, the editing system must have the capability to interpret the time code on the audio channel in order to sync. And they have their own software that does it. It does it amazingly. Final Cut Pro X, for example, would not know what to do with it. It's a broadcast wave. Basically, they cannot read the time code on it. And their software actually work amazingly with Final Cut by using XML in and out. They have amazing software that you guys should check it.
Chris? And then Mickey again. I'll come back to Mickey, and then that'll be it. Okay, great.
Plus one for Tentacle Sync. Mickey and I were actually having a conversation a few weeks ago, looking at some camera builds. He was asking, like, why don't I have a Comtech audio device to put the audio? And he was like, no, we just use timecode now. Tentacle Syncs are great. We also use nano locket boxes, which can resync throughout the day through a wireless network. You just have to be in proximity of your sound mixer so that you're absolutely sure that that doesn't drift throughout the day. I'll post a link.
And it's nano. Yeah, post a link in the chat. That'd be great. And
locket box. I'll post.
And then Mickey,
yeah,
you were gonna say one
the
more thing.
nano locket is made by Ambient, so they're solid.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, with going to the Blackmagic 4Ks, they can accept the timecode via the mini jack input, the 1/8" mini jack input. So you just plug it in, and you don't even have to hit jam. It just takes it.
And we'll I have all those devices laying around, so let me see if I can figure out how to maybe we'll try to put together a little video or do it just so we can just kind of get everybody up.
I just have this cable with the little bin connector, and then it goes to a mini jack. So that's what I use when I'm shooting with the Blackmagic pockets.
That's great. Next question.
The amount of little cables. Here we go. The newly purchased VDO 2 SEE webcam freaks out when I use my green screen and throws a red color cast over everything. Has anyone solved this? I'm on a Mac, and that's Paul Edison Lam.
So my guess is that it is using the entire frame to make color correction. So it's trying to give you an average. It's just the data inside of it is trying to give you the average, like, even color. And it's trying to bring those channels together. And when it's got a bunch of one color, it just doesn't go right. What you're going to need to do is do a manual, get something like a manual camera. So for $8 or something, you can download manual camera, and it will then talk to if it doesn't talk to it, then you don't have a webcam that you're going to be able to use for that kind of thing. But if it does talk to it, you can now set its white point. You can set, its exposure. So manual camera on the Mac gives you a lot of control over the back end of it. I've downloaded a bunch of them. It's the one I'm using the most now. And so webcam settings used to be the old one, but I don't know if it's not as stable or whatever. Yeah. And so anyway, but manual camera works great. Anyway, so it's that's what you need. You need something. You can go up to the App Store and find it, but you need something that is going to talk to your webcam and take over and say, stop doing this automatically. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. And we haven't tested that one. I mean, I know that with the Logitech, that is what we do all the time. Is put that in. Okay, next question.
Next question, Alex. Is there a multi-view program to ingest SRT or similar streams that, I'm assuming they mean to say that you can not only see the audio but also listen to it?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about it. I don't know. Read that again.
Is there a multi-view program to ingest SRT or similar streams that you can not only see the audio, but also listen to it?
Well, what we would do
I think I know. Are they looking for just simple DJ type software? Because
No,
Virtual
no,
DJ 8 would do that. They give the
no. I don't think it's DJ software. I think it's. I've got a bunch of streams coming in, and I want to be able to see and listen to those streams as they come in and select them, and you know, and I want to see the meters, and then, but I also want to be able to listen to any one of them. You know, I think that. Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
I don't know for certain, but I would look at
Chris, your mic's open.
GarnianApps.com. He's got an SRT mini server that will take up to 16 SRT inputs, and it does produce like a multi-view. I have not actually looked to see if you can. Let me open it real quick. I've not seen if you can actually like select each one. I know it does have meters, which I know that's the thing you're looking for, is being able to independently listen to them. We can definitely solve it. Hit us up on Discord.
Okay.
But yeah,
we'll take that to Discord. Next question.
Has anyone heard of a service called Hopin.to for a virtual conference?
Matthew has.
Matthew, would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. The Hopin.to is actually, I believe it's just Hopin. Hopin.to is the website for that. I've seen a few broadcasts. I've seen a few times I've gone in to test it. I work with an event company that we were testing it for. It's for expos. It's not designed really for participants, I find. Personal opinion only. What I'm finding is it terrifies me. When I'd looked at it and when they were talking about it, they were really touting the fact that anybody can go have a video conversation with anybody else. And when they said that, the first thing that comes to mind is if I'm running an event and all of a sudden you have basically a not a Snapchat, but a chat roulette that's possible with your event branding, that is like a big red flag for me.
Well, it's why we don't have person to person chatting
Correct.
in this webinar, and I turn that off because
Yeah.
there's all kinds of unhappiness that's there. You know, like
100%.
Yeah,
and they're targeting like thousands of people for these events, and if you're enabling that type of technology in that, and it's going to not be able to be tracked and not be able to be managed, like that's a giant red flag. I love what they're trying to do with making sure sponsors and booths and stuff like that are having a virtual presence, but when they start adding features, it's just no.
And I still think I don't think that the more I work on this and the more I work on events that were virtual events that we're building, the less I think that the paradigm of a 3-day event makes sense. You know, like I'm just, you know, like I'm looking at what we're doing every day and saying, if I was a brand and I wanted to, or if I was an organization, I think that I should be doing something. I should think about the event happens all year. You know, the event happens, you know, we have the tools to do that, where the event is going to occur all year. It's going to be weekly, it's going to be daily, it's going to be whatever that is, you know, but creating something that looks like office hours. And if you look at what we're doing, I mean, this is like coming out of the primordial ooze of us figuring this out, you know, like we don't have it figured out yet. But if you look at this idea of these, you know, our second hours and our Saturday sessions look a lot like sessions that we would see at NAB, you know, so, you know, of a discussion about a specific thing that we're going to go down the path of. The stuff that we're, you know, when we bring in vendors, it looks a lot like a booth at some point, you know, if as we start to do that. Now, I'm trying to figure out where the vendors go and so on and so forth. But the idea is I've decided that I don't really want vendors in the second hour. I really want us to be more about our members doing stuff and what we're learning and sharing back. And then occasionally just the right people coming in that are going to talk about it that aren't vendors.
That higher value conversation, which is generally like an after party at a conference.
And there's a handful of people that I know well enough that I've brought in as a vendor. So, you know, John Tatulas, you know, from Sound Devices he's the CEO of Sound Devices, but he's also a really good friend of mine. And I know that he'll only talk to you about Sound Devices if you really ask him. Like he'll sit there and just talk about audio forever, you know, and he's also he plays well with others. Like John's always going to go down the path of, he'll tell you what other people are doing and what's really good about even competitors, you know? And so that, you know, but I'm very selective on who's going to come in that area, because I have to know them personally and I have to know them well before I'm going to just, you know, drop them into that process. Jan, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, yesterday, for an example like that, I was speaking to my Shore rep and I was telling him about the office hours. And I said to him, look, I want to get the project manager for Axient to come in and do a little hour to talk about Axient, but I don't want it to be a sales pitch. That's why I didn't want my rep. So I would love to be able to be a link to getting some really high quality, but no sales.
What I'm kind of experimenting with is the idea. Yeah, I've told, and like when we brought Elemental in, we had the product managers, like that, we're not having sales guys come in. We're having the product managers come in and actually answer questions about it and open, putting them in the pit, making them answer questions is kind of a fun thing. So we're being really selective where I think that and again, I know those guys really well at Elemental. So I knew what we were going to get, and so we're going to kind of keep on going down that path. Okay. Next question.
I love the way this is written. Alex, what's the best software to use when recording a podcast with 3 to 4 people that aren't in the same room? And if the best software is expensive, what's a more affordable solution?
So, there's a bunch of different things, for it. As far as I think that for the stuff that we've experimented with, obviously the cheapest one is GarageBand if you're on the Mac. I mean, that's just there. But I find that GarageBand is a bit heavy. Like it just feels heavy when you're using it. It's got a lot of little dials and it's got a lot of stuff. I don't really like editing in GarageBand for podcasts. And I started when GarageBand came out, I was like, I'm going to do all this stuff in GarageBand. I've leaned more towards, and I had to recheck myself to see if I'm going down the right path. But Reaper is a really good, solution. Brian, do you have any other input on that?
Well, it's I mean, the things that you're talking about are basically how do we record the local person. Like if I can get everybody that's to record locally and send me the files, that's great. It feels like maybe the questioner is asking more for a Zencaster type solution, and unfortunately Zencaster is the only one I've worked with personally, so I don't have a lot more to add to that.
So, and then there's Squadcast, but that's limited to, I think, is it 4 people that Squadcast is limited to? I think it's 4 or 5. And I've been on the receiving end of Squadcast, and I found it to be really nice. There's another one, cleanfeed.net for recording. Audacity is a good app as well. But I found that Squadcast, as the person on the other end, was great. But I haven't had to deal with any of those things. Go ahead, Chris, and then Yashai, and then Colin.
I mean, I've done a few hundred episodes of my own, and I never did anything more than just bring people in on Skype, record it locally, and it's not perfect, but
you don't have a way to that's all a muxed mix. I mean, like they're all together, right?
It's all mixed together.
By the way, I always record it that way as a backup, but I try to do as best I can to find some way that I'm going to double end or I'm going to do something so that I can tune it up if I can. I mean, the thing is that we push pretty hard at trying to really edit everything. So because and I'll talk about this from time to time, but when we talk to clients about what they want to do and they just want it to be easy and they just want to do it, put it out, my opinion generally is that you can do something that is easy to make or easy to listen to or watch. It is very hard to do both, and so when you do something that's easy to do, like, oh, I just want to do it with my iPhone, or I just want to do it all there and I want to cut it all up. Yeah, it's easy to do. And maybe you make that choice, but you make it harder for the end listener to listen to. And so, so that's why we tweak a lot of stuff to the last little minute, because we want people that's going to affect your view, your listen time, how long, how much people listen to it, how much they recommend it, there's all these things. When you put out when you double end every person with a PR40 and you bring it all in, it sounds different, and they're more likely to listen longer. They're more likely to think that it tells them that this is a higher level conversation than what you had before. And that's also why we're slowly improving all of our audio here. Is because we want it to be something that eventually people can listen to, and every single person talking, sounds great. Yashai?
Okay, here's the nice thing about to solve this problem is the Sound Devices Mix Pre series. If you need only 3 mics, you can get the.
But the problem is we have we're dealing with an issue where you're dealing with people in different places. So that unless they all have mixed pre's, then that becomes more of a problem. So that's the question is not
specifically
not in
it
the room.
was separate rooms, separate
rooms. They're coming in from like different locations. So if everybody can have a mixed pre 3 and do that would be great. Colin and then Jan, and then we're going to move on. No more after that.
Yeah, I took the question to be somewhat different. I took it to mean they were doing not an audio only podcast, but audio, video, and possibly live. So I would have taken part of Chris's solution, go with Skype in with 4 separate calls, not or 3 calls and 1 not call, into Skype running on individual VMs with NDI going into OBS. That gives you live audio, video, and individual streams.
And the only reason that the only reason I probably wouldn't use it is because we've had people in this group have specific issues with the NDI out of Skype with audio, where it blew up, and so I'm like, oh, that's not, I'm not going to do anything near that.
You've got the NDI over a virtual network on the same physical hardware.
Yeah.
So it may or may not work better, but that would be the solution I would try if you're looking for free.
Okay, cool. And then Jan? That's it.
Anchor.fm. It's all in one, gives you, it's really cool. I've been using it for a long time, and you can do collaboration with it.
Okay, great. Well, we'll check that out. Let's make sure to put that in our links section, because I want to look at that. Chris, go ahead. Next question.
When using hardware encoders for streaming, how do you monitor, diagnose, and troubleshoot performance and problems with the stream and the network?
Okay, so there's a couple of things to unpack there. So when we're using hardware encoders, and that's mostly what I do is use hardware encoders. I don't really use a lot of software encoders. The number one is you're looking at an elemental, which is what I use mostly, will give me a lot of feedback. Not this little one, but the bigger ones will give me feedback of, I have a log that I'm constantly have opened that I'm looking at that is showing me any kind of errors that it has, and that can be uploaded, like RTMP packet errors. It'll tell me, I can, it'll tell me if it's getting all the packets there. And what you're looking for is every hour there's a time, right? And it just, as long as there's nothing between the time, you're okay. And when we get on site, the first thing that we do is we turn our elementals on. So we put them in, we just turn them on. As soon as I have network, I will put them through, I'll turn them on, because what I'm looking for are all those errors, and I want it to run for days. I want it, if I'm there, days before, I want it to run for days, because what that's giving me is it's giving me a view of what the network is doing over a long period of time. And if something goes wrong, I'll go ask networker, like between 5 and 6, I lost it. And they'll go, oh, we were changing something. That's fine. But number one is it tells the network operators that we're paying attention a lot. And it also tells us what we should be looking for. But there's all kinds of network logs that we're looking at within the elemental. And I don't have a lot of experience. I have to admit, I've been using their hardware for a decade, and I don't really know a lot of the outside of that for hardware encoding. The other thing we do is they usually pass through a Meraki. So the Meraki gives me graphs and everything else of my bandwidth usage. And so I can look at that all the time and just see what's my upload speeds and my download speeds of what I'm using all the time. And I'm looking for glitches and spikes and all kinds of other things that are there. And again, I want to see it over time, not over the last half an hour. I want to see it over the, a long period of time. I want to see what's there, because I'm looking for any issues that may occur. And then on the other side of that, we take that stream down, and we bring that stream down, and we're looking at it for audio. We run it through. We don't run it through video scopes. It's really not as accurate, but audio scopes, we absolutely run it through. So we're looking for all those bits and pieces. And there's a lot of packet inspection that you can do on the other end. So you can definitely, there's a lot of tools that you can use that get pretty esoteric that will, you can do packet inspection. So as they're coming out, you can be looking at all the packets and whether they're all getting there. And so, those are some of the things that we do to kind of, manage that, manage that process. And then, Matthew, you were going to say something?
On a less technical side, yes, the Meraki stuff for the networking, definitely good. To the non-techie type person, I actually dedicate one of my inputs to my helos. I've got 2 helos that I run redundancies through. And I run the output of that into the multi-view so I can see the VU meters and always see that signal. And that VU meter should be matching anything I'm seeing across the board. And that's why I'm checking the audio and the video coming out of that. Because if it's not
and a
getting
lot of
audio and
times,
video,
yeah, and I've showed the graphs before. When we talk about audio meters, which is coming up sometime in the next couple of weeks, I have a whole page of audio meters that are running of my input signal. And it's a spectrogram, spectrograph, Lizhizhu, audio history or level history, all this other stuff I'm looking at, and then I have one for the stream. And to Matthew's point, I have them right next to each other, and I'm looking at both of them so I can compare what's going on. A lot of times we are adjusting in our elementals, we're adjusting the audio because we can gain it up a little bit, because the audio engineer, like Brian, is willing to do it for us, but most audio engineers, asking them to go above -10 is like asking them to jump off a cliff. Like they will not do it. They will not. They'll just look at. They'll just stare at it. They'll tell you that they're doing it, but they won't do it. So then we just go. We just
fight question right quick because it needs to be asked. Matthew, what is a Helios, or what's the Helios hardware?
It's an HA Hilo. They're just hardware encoders. They can do 1080p 61 stream. Check out aja.com for more.
Cool.
So anyway, so we're gonna, but so what we do is we can add the gain in the elementals if we need to. We can just touch them up, add 6 dB of gain, and get them to where we want them. If we know that they're doing rock hard at -10, we know that we can bring them up by 6 or 5 or 6. We won't do it in the elemental to get as close to the top as we could, but we'll move it up a little bit so that we don't get a lot of feedback. Anyway, Chris, go ahead. Next question.
Has anyone updated to Mac OS 10.15.5? Any bugs uncovered? I assume many of us are still on Mojave. I am.
Now, Bill Davis.
Yeah, I installed it a couple of days ago, and I haven't had a single anomaly since then. So I've only been using it for a couple of days, and I haven't done any really heavy editing. I've been doing some lightweight stuff, but no problem so far.
Okay. Sky?
I'm on 10.15.4, and I've been running Premiere and Resolve and all of this on a 2019 PowerBook.
Okay, great. And Victor?
Waited until this month. Haven't had any issues after I found out that all my plugin people were going to be okay with it and Pro Tools was going to be okay. So far, it's been stable, not like my machine.
And Felipe?
15.5 fixed the RAID stuff, the soft RAID stuff, and fixed the SMB connections. So if anyone was having problems with disconnecting from SMB, that has been fixed. It's undocumented.
That's awesome.
That's been a huge problem for me. Very cool.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say Photo Joseph posted a thing on Twitter yesterday about his whole RAID just disappeared overnight, and he had to restore it. And I said, "Were you on Catalina?" And he goes, yeah, I was.
Okay, next question.
Well, you caught me off guard. Hi, folks. I have a use case that is challenging to me. How do I play pre-recorded content with an SRT file to Twitter? I need, and I'm sorry, I don't know what any of this stuff is. I need 608/708 enable. Any other way than using an EEG 492? Okay.
Yeah. So the answer is not really. Now, if you want to do so you can. Here's the thing: is that you should be able to do it if you record it. So a hyperdeck will record the captions. So if you're running, you still need the EEG to source it. So you can't do it with the SRT. So the SRT is not really a real-time format. You need it to be in VTT typically, and so or not VTT, but MCC. So what you need to do is, or SCC is the DVD version, MCC is the Mac captions version, and MCC is the format that's being used inside of the hyperdeck. So if you record captions into a hyperdeck, you can play that out, and it should play that out with the 608/708 embedded into it on the way out. So if you need to play that out, you got to convert. You have to play it in though. You can't. You need the EEG at some point. You need something that's going to insert the 608/708 into the SDI signal as it comes in, and then the Blackmagic will write it. We have not been successful, not without trying, to use software to insert that in. And so so there's a bunch of things about that, anyway, so we're working on that, but right now the most successful way to do it is to run it at once through the EEG and then push it into it. And what you can do is you can rent EEGs, by the way. You don't have to buy them. You can rent them for a day, plumb all that stuff in, and then send it out. But it is complicated because I'm sure you built an SRT that's separate. You're trying to embed it. This is a problem that a lot of us are dealing with, especially now that we're doing multiple languages and they're doing a bunch of other things. There hasn't been a great way for us to do that. And I'm working on it this summer for a bunch of projects. I do a lot of caption stuff. And so we are we'll ask that question again in August, and I might have better answers, but we haven't found a good way to do it other than to pass that live stuff into directly into that. And what we do is you can literally, if you have the SRT, you literally break it out and you format it within the software for the captionist, and the captionist literally just goes next, and puts it in, and it just drives it through the system. And it sounds very esoteric, but it is something that we haven't found another solution. And Colin, only if you have a solution. Do you have a solution for that?
I was just checking, and I was 90% sure that you can do this with Handbrake to burn in the captions.
Well, you don't want to burn in the captions. You want them to be on that. You want them to be the 608, 708 metadata.
Okay, yeah. So I can't.
Yeah,
help you with that.
You can burn. There's lots of things.
Burning in was another alternative.
No, you're there's lots of things that'll burn them in. That's not hard.
Yeah.
What's hard is getting them to go into the data chain so that they'll show up. Now, what I will tell you is that Twitter's management.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to tell you. I'm going to move on after this because I want to get to the next question. All I will say is Twitter's captioning solution is a dumpster fire. So, I mean, they need to solve that, or we need to stop using it because it's just a mess. You'll end up with six lines and all kinds of other stuff. That whole platform is held together with baling wire. Tucker, last thing, and then but be very quick.
Very brief.
Move on to the next question.
Just SRT file captioning, SRT transport, totally different thing. Those are very different.
Yeah. I'm answering a question around SRT captioning.
Yes.
The SRT is a transport thing that we've talked about in the past, and they are not at all the same. Chris, go ahead.
I'm trying to live stream 3 cameras plus audio from a microphone on a mid-range Windows laptop. Would a Blackmagic ATEM help reduce the load on the machine?
Oh yeah,
as opposed to using 3 USB capture cards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It'll cost you about the same as the capture cards, I think, and it will absolutely take the work off of your computer because it's going to come in as one webcam, and it's going to take all that work away from it. I would absolutely, if I had the choice, if I still had to buy the cards to put those in to support it, and I had a mid-range PC, I would absolutely get an ATEM Mini. And yeah, okay, let's move on. Let's go to the next one. We're kind of in the power round because we've got 3 minutes.
This is the last one I have. If there's more, upvote them, everybody. Okay. What are some of the rental houses that offer Halvision Makito encoders?
Well, I think VER will have those. VER will probably have Makitos. I don't know any other place that would have Makitos.
I just left a link for yourside.NL. So this is probably the Netherlands. You have to be overseas in order to get one. I don't see them anywhere else.
Okay. But the VER be my first check. I don't know of anybody else that would rent them. Go ahead and next question.
For those of you who have an ATEM Mini, would you upgrade to the Pro if you could?
I'm upgrading today. so I'm upgrading today. So the reason that I would upgrade, I was a little like, I don't think I need it, and there's a couple extra buttons, and I'm never going to stream out of it. Multiview, for me, the multiview is the thing and I do have some concerns about the heat compensation. I'm definitely going to print or have printed one of Paul Shadwell's little designs. He's got a great. Can you show it, Paul? Can you show us the design? I have to admit, I want it so badly in metal that I'm probably gonna send it out to Shapeways to metal it, or I'm gonna try to send it to a CNC and build one. But it just looks awesome. So Paul had one, and then I think that Colin Hill had added to it with some fasteners and our ability to screw it in. And so I think
if you'd
that
like the design files, we can probably get that to you so you can have it CNC'd.
Yes, yeah.
I'll just note, if you haven't ordered one yet, they're about 7.5 weeks to get mine. I arrived 3 days ago, and that's how long ago I ordered it.
Yeah. It's speeding up now. I think that they're spooling up, and so I think that wait time is going to start dropping down. But they're making as many as they can make.
I'm going to be calling. Got my.
And those are Paul. Go ahead and show those
today.
again. Show those again, Paul. Where when you got? Can you put those up? So these are little stands.
I have lots of them.
Yeah, those are the little stands, and they work great as far as giving it a better position, as well as I think Paul's going to have to turn these into a product, because they're great. So, but we do have some concerns. Like one thing I would say is that I don't leave even my Mini plugged in. So I unplug it when I'm not using it because it gets really hot, and we know we've had some issues where people have come in the next day and they're warm. They smell like solder, not solder, but flux. All right, and now we are shifting gears. So without further ado, we're going to move to we're going to be talking about vMix. So a lot of us use a lot of different things, and the thing that we all see Leland talking about all the time is vMix. And so finally, we decided we're going to have Leland come on and give us an introduction to his favorite app.
I'm going to cut the stream.
Yeah, go ahead and cut the stream.